So I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're walking into this little boutique in Arizona.
Okay.
It's peak tourist season. The weather is absolutely perfect. The foot traffic is incredibly heavy. And you are standing there staring at this display case full of beautiful, authentic turquoise jewelry.
Right, a classic tourist trap scenario, but with good stuff.
Exactly. The quality is actually excellent,
Hmm.
and the price is perfectly reasonable for what it is. But the thing is, nobody is buying it.
Not a single piece.
Not a single piece. The owner of the shop is completely baffled by this. I mean, she tries everything. She tries moving the display case to the center of the store to get more eyes on it. Nothing.
Yeah.
She tells her sales staff to, really push the turquoise hard to
Mhm.
anyone who walks in the door. Still nothing. The jewelry's just sitting there, gathering dust week after week.
Which, I mean, that is a frustrating but honestly incredibly common retail scenario. The value proposition is solid, but the consumer behavior simply isn't aligning with the economic logic.
Right. So the owner's completely fed up. She's about to leave on this buying trip out of town, and right before she walks out the door, she hastily scribbles a note to her head saleswoman. And the note says, everything in this display case, price times 1/2.
She's just cutting her losses.
Exactly. She figures she'll just take a hit on the inventory, clear the space for new stuff, whatever. But the saleswoman actually misreads her handwriting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, she thinks the 1/2 is a 2. So she goes to the entire display case and doubles the price of every single piece of turquoise jewelry.
And this right here is where the human brain reveals its profoundly counterintuitive wiring.
It really is, because when the owner returns from her trip a few days later, she walks in to find that the entire display case has been cleared out. Every single piece of turquoise sold.
Yep.
And not at a discount, at twice the original price.
Yep.
I mean, let's just pause and look at this for a second. Doubling the price of an item that literally no one wanted suddenly made everyone want
It
it.
makes no sense.
None. If we assume humans are, these rational, calculating agents carefully weighing cost against value, this makes zero sense.
Well, and that assumption is the very first thing we need to dismantle today. I mean, we carry this deep-seated illusion that our decisions are the result of deliberate, conscious commands. Like, we think we see the code running in our own heads.
Right, we think we're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. But this Arizona jewelry story exposes the reality, which is that we are frequently operating on deeply embedded automatic scripts. I mean, those tourists in that shop didn't suddenly acquire some sophisticated appreciation for turquoise matrix patterns. They relied on a completely different psychological mechanism.
And mapping out those invisible mechanisms is, well, that's our entire mission for this deep dive. Because today, you, the listener, you are stepping into a masterclass on the architecture of human influence. We are basically pretending you are a brand new marketing student, and we are taking the brilliant insights from Dr. Robert Cialdini's expanded book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion.
A fantastic foundational text.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're going to deconstruct exactly how the human brain is wired to say yes. But, we aren't just looking at the theory here. We are going to apply these psychological levers directly to the modern customer journey, from the exact moment a consumer discovers a brand all the way to the second they click buy now.
And to do that effectively, we have to start with a framework, because you can't just memorize a list of persuasion tactics and, deploy them randomly.
Right, it's not just a grab bag of tricks.
No, not at all. There is a precise sequence to how influence works. So we'll be anchoring our discussion today in what's called the core motives model of social influence, which was developed by Dr. Gregory Neidert, and it organizes all the universal principles of persuasion into 3 sequential goals.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Sure. So step 1 is cultivating a positive relationship. Step 2 is reducing uncertainty. And step 3 is motivating action.
Which mirrors the classic marketing funnel perfectly, honestly. Discovery, evaluation, conversion.
Exactly. It maps right onto it.
But before we can actually track our hypothetical consumer through that 3-step journey, we have to address that turquoise jewelry.
Sure.
Like, we have to look under the hood of the brain and figure out why these levers work at all.
Right.
And to do that, we actually need to talk about, evolutionary biology.
Yes, we do.
Specifically, we need to talk about mother turkeys.
Which is always my favorite place to start. Because the world of ethology, which is, the study of animal behavior in their natural environment, it provides the most illuminating window into human automaticity.
It really does. So mother turkeys are this incredible case study. They are intensely protective, vigilant, and nurturing mothers, right? They spend their days warming, cleaning, and just generally huddled over their chicks.
Right. Good moms.
Very good moms.
Yeah.
But ethologists discovered something bizarre about them. That entire maternal program, the warming, the protecting, all of it, is triggered by one single, isolated stimulus.
And it's not what you would expect.
No, it's not the smell of the chick. It's not the sight of the chick. It's a sound. It's this little cheep, cheep noise that young turkey chicks make.
Just that one specific frequency.
Exactly. If a chick makes that sound, the mother will care for it. But if the chick is deaf and cannot make that sound, the mother will often ignore it, or, this is kind of dark in some brutal cases, she'll even kill it.
Which leads us directly to the experiment with the stuffed polecat. And this is honestly one of the most vivid demonstrations of biological programming you will ever encounter.
Oh, it's wild. So for context, a polecat is the natural enemy of the turkey.
Right. It's a predator.
Yes. If a mother turkey so much as catches a glimpse of a polecat, she goes into an immediate, violent rage. She squawks, she claws, she pecks. She will literally fight to the death to protect her nest.
So the researchers wanted to test the limits of this cheep, cheep trigger. They took a taxidermied polecat, put it on a string, and pulled it toward a mother turkey.
And as expected, she went absolutely ballistic. She attacked the stuffed predator instantly.
But then they altered the experiment. They hid a tiny tape recorder inside the stuffed polecat, and they played the cheep, cheep sound of a baby turkey.
And this is the crazy part. The physical reality of the predator remained exactly the same. The visual threat was identical. It's still a polecat.
It's still a polecat. But the moment that cheep, cheep sound hit the mother turkey's ears, the rage just vanished. She stopped attacking. She approached the stuffed enemy, gathered it underneath her body, and began to lovingly warm and protect it.
She was mothering her deadliest predator.
Because of a sound on a tape recorder?
But the second the tape recorder was switched off, she attacked it again. It is mind-boggling. I look at that and think the turkey's brain is essentially acting like a mechanical switch.
That's exactly how ethologists describe it. They call this a fixed action pattern. It is a blind, mechanical sequence of behavior that unrolls in virtually the same fashion, in the same order, every single time.
So the animal isn't really thinking.
No, the animal is not analyzing the totality of its environment. It is waiting for a trigger feature. When the situation calls for mothering, the maternal program is, it's locked and loaded. The cheep, cheep sound is the trigger.
Click, run.
Exactly. Click, the appropriate program is activated. Run, the standard sequence of behaviors unrolls. Click, run.
Click, run. That paints such a clear picture. The trigger feature is just this tiny sliver of the total reality, but it completely overrides everything else.
Yes.
But, okay, I have to push back a little bit on applying this directly to us. Because we aren't turkeys. We possess the prefrontal cortex.
Right.
We build spaceships. We compose symphonies. We obviously have the capacity to evaluate context.
Sure.
So is it really fair to suggest that we are running like cheap, cheap software when we are navigating a complex negotiation or just browsing an online store?
It is entirely fair, actually, provided we understand the distinction in how those programs are installed. So animal fixed action patterns are largely inborn, right? They are hardwired by evolution. Human automaticity is mostly learned. We pick it up through culture and experience over our lifetimes. But the mechanism, the reliance on isolated trigger features to initiate a sequence of behavior, is virtually identical. And we can prove this by looking at how human beings process a single word, the word because.
Oh, you're talking about the famous Ellen Langer copy machine study.
Yes.
This is the perfect bridge from animal ethology to human psychology.
It really is. So Langer, who is a social psychologist at Harvard, wanted to test the parameters of human automaticity. She identified a scenario with a high level of, low-stakes social tension.
Right, a line of people waiting to use a library copy machine.
Exactly. Interrupting that line requires the people waiting to make a very quick calculation about whether or not to comply.
Right, they have to decide, am I going to let this person cut in front of me?
So she walks up to the person at the front of the line and uses 3 different scripts to ask if she can cut in. The first script is just a direct request. She says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?"
Just a straight-up ask.
Yep. And she gets a 60% compliance rate. 60% of people are polite enough to just let her cut based on the ask alone. That's our baseline.
Okay, 60%.
For the second script, she adds a reason. She says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?"
And the compliance rate skyrockets to 94%, which honestly feels entirely rational. I mean, I would hypothesize that if someone gives me a legitimate reason involving urgency, my brain evaluates that reason, weighs it against my own schedule, and decides that being a good citizen in this moment is the right choice.
Right. It feels like a conscious, deliberate evaluation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is precisely the illusion Langer wanted to shatter, because to test if people were actually evaluating the reason or just reacting mechanically to the form of the request, she deployed her third script.
Okay, what was it?
She walks up and says, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?"
Because I have to make some copies.
Yes.
I mean, it is a completely hollow statement. It conveys zero new information.
Yeah.
Everyone in the line has to make copies. That is the defining characteristic of being in a line at a coffee machine.
Exactly. If human beings are rational evaluators, compliance should plummet back to the 60% baseline, or honestly even lower, since the excuse is borderline insulting to their intelligence.
But it didn't plummet, did it?
No. The compliance rate was 93%.
Statistically identical to providing a genuine, urgent reason.
Identical. The people in line weren't evaluating the substance of the claim at all. They were reacting to a trigger feature. The word "because" is the human equivalent of the turkey's cheap keep. Click run. They heard the word "because." Their brains subconsciously registered that a justification was being provided, and they automatically triggered the compliance sequence without even processing the rest of the sentence.
It is a stunning realization. We are functioning on autopilot. But I imagine, some listeners might hear this and feel a bit defensive. They might think this implies human beings are inherently lazy or foolish.
And it's vital we reframe that right now. This automaticity is not a design flaw. It is an evolutionary imperative.
How so?
Because you and I exist in the most extraordinarily complex, stimulus-saturated environment that has ever existed on this planet. We are bombarded with thousands of micro-decisions every single day. We simply do not have the time, the energy, or the cognitive capacity to meticulously analyze every single aspect of every situation we encounter.
Oh, for sure. If we've tried to fully compute the variables of every social interaction or every purchase at the grocery store, our brains would freeze up entirely.
We would be paralyzed. So instead, we rely on shortcuts. Psychologists call them judgmental heuristics. They are rules of thumb that, crucially, work well most of the time. Which brings us right back to the turquoise jewelry in Arizona.
Right, because the tourists in that shop were facing a complex environment. They wanted to buy high-quality turquoise, but they lacked the domain expertise to evaluate the density or the matrix or the polish of the actual stones.
Exactly. They needed a shortcut to assess the value.
And the shortcut they used was the rule: expensive equals good.
Yes. In our society, price and worth are generally strongly correlated. It is a reliable heuristic. Higher price usually does indicate better materials or better craftsmanship.
Right, you get what you pay for.
Right. So, when the saleswoman accidentally doubled the price, the tourist's brains detected the high price trigger feature. Click, run. The high price activated the good quality assessment, which in turn activated the desire to purchase. They bet the odds, basically.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
And we actually have a reader report from the book that illustrates how deeply entrenched this heuristic is, even when it actively works against our own financial interest.
Oh, this is a great one.
Yeah, it's Reader Report 1.1, and it was submitted by a doctoral student. He tells this story of an antique jewelry store owner. A friend of the owner comes in looking for a birthday present for his fiancée.
Okay.
The jeweler knows his inventory, picks out a really beautiful necklace that normally retails for $500, and decides to do his friend a massive favor. He offers it to him for his cost, which is $250.
Which is a steal. A completely rational consumer should be absolutely thrilled. They are acquiring a $500 of objective value for half the price.
But the friend doesn't see it that way at all. As soon as he hears the $250 price tag, his face falls. He starts, hemming and hawing, backing away from the counter, saying he really wanted something nice for his bride.
Wow.
He rejects the necklace entirely.
Because he is applying the inverse of the heuristic, inexpensive equals bad or cheap. His brain cannot decouple the price tag from the perceived quality of the item.
And the story gets even better. The jeweler realizes exactly what just happened. So the next day, he calls his friend and says, "Hey, I had another piece come in. I really want you to look at it."
Okay.
The friend comes back to the store. The jeweler brings out the exact same necklace from the day before.
The exact same one.
Identical. But this time, he introduces it at its regular retail price of $500.
The trigger feature has been swapped.
Exactly. The friend holds it, examines it, and absolutely loves it. He agrees to buy it on the spot. But before he hands over his credit card, the jeweler says, Listen, as a wedding gift to you both, I'm going to drop the price down to $250.
Hey, let me guess.
The friend is ecstatic. He is overjoyed to pay $250 for a necklace he believes is worth $500, even though it is the exact same physical object he rejected for $250 the day prior.
It perfectly encapsulates the dual nature of our cognitive shortcuts. They are necessary for our survival, but their automatic nature leaves us incredibly vulnerable to anyone who knows how to manipulate the trigger features.
Right.
And that vulnerability is the foundation of our masterclass today.
So we have established the groundwork.
Yeah.
Humans rely on heuristics. We operate on click, run mechanics.
Yeah.
Now let's apply this architecture to the core motives model and track our hypothetical consumer.
Let's do it.
Step 1 on the journey, discovery and relationship cultivation. The customer has just encountered your brand. The primary goal here is to get them to feel positively toward you, to cultivate an affinity. And the psychological levers we use to achieve this are reciprocation, liking, and a fascinating new principle called unity. Let's start with reciprocation.
So Cialdini calls this the old give and take. The rule is universal across human cultures. We are obligated to the future repayment of favors, gifts, invitations, and the like. It is arguably the foundational mechanism of human civilization.
Wait, really? That sounds like a massive claim. The foundation of civilization.
I mean, consider it anthropologically. Before currency, before written contracts, early human societies survived through reciprocal altruism. If I share my hunt with you today when you are starving, I am doing so with the hardwired expectation that you will share your forage with me next week when I am hungry.
Oh, I see.
It creates a web of indebtedness that allows for the division of labor and the exchange of goods. A society without a strong reciprocation rule simply cannot survive because no one would ever give anything away. It prevents freeloading.
So the evolutionary pressure to honor this rule is immense. We feel this visceral psychological discomfort when we are in a state of unreciprocated debt. It's why we hate being called a moocher or an ingrate. And this rule is so powerful, it can force us to comply with requests from people we don't even know. Cialdini actually cites a mind-blowing study where a university professor decided to test the limits of this obligation.
It's an elegant experiment. The professor selected a sample of perfect strangers from a telephone directory. He then mailed them all handwritten Christmas cards.
Just totally random people receiving a holiday card from someone they have never met and have never heard of. I mean, I would guess most people would just throw it away, confused.
But that's not what happened at all. A massive influx of holiday cards came pouring back to the professor from these complete strangers.
No way.
Yes. The vast majority never even inquired into his identity. They received a gift, and the reciprocation program was triggered. Click, run. They mechanically sent one back to balance the social ledger.
The impulse to repay completely overrode the sheer absurdity of the situation. So for a marketer, the application seems pretty obvious. Give before you ask. But let's look at the scale of the gift. Does it have to be proportional to the request?
Astonishingly, no. The feeling of indebtedness is often so uncomfortable that people will agree to a substantially larger favor just to rid themselves of the psychological burden.
Really?
Yeah. Consider the study involving investment bankers in the United Kingdom. Researchers approached these highly paid professionals as they were arriving at their office buildings. The researchers were soliciting for a charity, and they asked the bankers to donate a full day's salary.
A full day's salary for a UK investment banker that could easily be $1,000 or more. That is a massive, highly intrusive request.
Exactly. And when they simply made the request cold, the compliance rate was predictably dismal. Almost no one did it. But then they introduced a tiny variation. Before making the massive request for a day's salary, the volunteer simply offered the banker a small packet of sweets.
A trivial, inexpensive piece of candy.
Right. And the bankers took the candy. Contributions more than doubled.
Wow.
A packet of sweets worth maybe 50 cents triggered a subconscious obligation that resulted in $1,000 donations. The scale of the initial gift does not dictate the scale of the reciprocation.
That is terrifyingly effective. But I'm thinking about digital marketing, right? We can't hand out packets of sweets through a computer screen. I constantly see brands offering free PDF guides or 10% off your first order in exchange for an email address. Is that the digital equivalent? Does a free PDF actually create a genuine sense of indebtedness, or have consumers just become blind to it at this point?
It's a spectrum. A generic, low-effort PDF might not trigger a strong obligation because the perceived value of the gift is near zero. Everyone gives out a PDF.
Oh, right.
However, if a brand provides a genuinely valuable, highly personalized piece of utility, say, a complex financial calculator or an in-depth, customized audit of your website before ever asking for a sale, the reciprocation rule is heavily activated. The key is that the gift must be perceived as unconditional and valuable.
But there is another, arguably more sophisticated way to use reciprocation that doesn't involve giving a physical or digital gift at all. It involves giving a concession.
Yes.
It's known as the rejection then retreat technique.
Yeah.
And Cialdini's story about the Boy Scout is the absolute textbook example of this.
Let's break down the mechanics of that encounter. So Cialdini is walking down the street and a Boy Scout approaches him. The Scout makes a pitch. Would you like to buy a $5 ticket to the Boy Scout circus this weekend?
And Cialdini declines. He doesn't want to spend $5, and he certainly doesn't want to spend his weekend at a Boy Scout circus. So he issues a clear no.
Right. Now, what does the Scout do? He immediately retreats from his initial position. He says, well, if you don't want to buy any tickets, how about buying some of our big chocolate bars? They're only $1 each.
And Cialdini ends up buying 2 candy bars. He walks away with $2 less in his pocket and chocolate he doesn't even want. And when he analyzes his own behavior later, he realizes he was hit with a psychological 1-2 punch.
It is a reciprocal concession. Think about it as a negotiation. The Scout started with the large request. Cialdini rejected it. By backing down from the $5 ticket to the $1 candy bar, the Scout made a concession.
Okay.
The rule of reciprocation dictates that if someone makes a concession to you, you are socially obligated to make a concession in return.
So Cialdini's concession was moving from no on the first request to yes on the second request. He compromised because the Scout compromised.
Exactly. And what makes this technique so lethal is that it operates in tandem with the contrast principle, which we will dissect fully a bit later. But briefly, compared to the $5 request, the $1 request looks artificially smaller than it would have if it had been presented on its own.
It's brilliant. Start large, get rejected. Retreat to what you actually wanted all along. You get the sale, and the customer actually feels satisfied because they think they dictated the terms of the compromise.
Yes, they feel like they won the negotiation. So, we have established indebtedness through reciprocation. The second lever for cultivating a relationship in step 1 is liking.
Which sounds almost too simple, honestly. Of course, we prefer to say yes to people we know and like. If my best friend asks me to help them move, I say yes. If a stranger asks, I say no.
Right.
But how do you manufacture liking out of thin air? If you are a brand or a salesperson, you can't just be everyone's best friend.
No, but you can reverse engineer the subconscious cues that create affinity. One of the most reliable and perhaps uncomfortable factors is physical attractiveness. Decades of research confirm the existence of a massive halo effect surrounding attractive individuals.
Let's define the halo effect for the students. It's when one positive characteristic of a person completely dominates the way they are viewed in all other respects, right?
Yes. Our brains possess this cognitive bias where we automatically assign traits like talent, kindness, honesty, and high intelligence to people who are aesthetically pleasing. And we do this without any conscious awareness that physical attractiveness is driving our assessment.
Which explains why virtually every model in an advertisement is impossibly good-looking. The brand wants the halo of their beauty to bleed over onto the product itself.
Exactly. But beauty isn't the only trigger. Similarity is another massive driver. We like people who are like us. This can be as profound as shared political beliefs or as trivial as sharing the same birthday or first name.
Oh, yeah.
We also have an overwhelming susceptibility to praise. Compliments are incredibly effective at generating liking, even when the recipient consciously knows the flatterer has an ulterior motive.
I see this constantly in e-commerce. Brands are meticulously trained to mirror their target demographic. If they're selling outdoor gear, their copywriting sounds like a rugged hiker. They send welcome emails saying, "We're so glad you're part of the family, you have great taste." They are systematically building a digital friendship based on similarity and praise.
But this brings us to a critical evolution in the psychology of persuasion, because in the extended edition of the book, Cialdini introduces a 7th, completely distinct principle of influence. It moves beyond mere liking and enters the realm of identity.
Yes.
It is the principle of unity.
This is a massive paradigm shift. Because unity isn't about saying, oh, that person is like us. It is about the visceral realization of saying, oh, that person is one of us.
And that distinction is vital. Liking is about surface-level affinity. Unity is about tribal categories, race, ethnicity, nationality, family, deep-seated political affiliations. When a person belongs to your we group, the boundaries between self and other blur. The conduct and outcomes of one member directly influence the self-esteem of the others. The we literally becomes the shared me.
So how does a marketer tap into something so primal? How do you monetize tribalism? Because the classic example Cialdini uses to illustrate this is the Tupperware party.
Ah, yes. The Tupperware party is perhaps the most ruthless and elegant deployment of the unity principle in commercial history.
Ruthless is a good word for it.
If you look at the mechanics of Tupperware party, it utilizes several levers. It uses reciprocation. The party starts with games and small prizes given to everyone. It uses social proof. Once a few women start buying, the others feel pressure to conform.
But the true engine of the Tupperware party isn't the plastic containers, is it? It's the hostess.
Precisely. The request to purchase the Tupperware does not come from a corporate salesperson standing at the front of the room. It comes from the hostess, a friend, a neighbor, a family member of everyone in attendance. The guests are sitting in her living room, drinking her coffee. They share a unitized identity with her.
And the guests know that a percentage of every purchase goes directly to the hostess. So to say no to the Tupperware isn't rejecting a brand. It is rejecting your friend. It is betraying the tribe. That pressure is almost impossible to withstand.
The power of the we group completely overrides objective product evaluation. Now, the challenge for modern marketers is translating that localized living room tribalism into a scalable digital strategy. How does a brand, functioning as a faceless corporation, invite a consumer into a shared identity?
Well, I would hypothesize it has to do with mission statements or shared enemies, like a sustainable clothing brand framing itself as fighting against fast fashion. You aren't just buying a shirt, you are joining their crusade.
That is a highly effective approach, yes. But there is a more subtle psychological master tactic that brands can use, specifically regarding how they ask for consumer feedback.
Oh, right.
Imagine a brand is developing a new product line and wants input from their customer base. They send out a survey. The standard instinct is to ask the customer for their opinion or their expectations regarding the new product.
Which sounds perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Tell us your opinion on our new shoe design.
It sounds normal, but linguistically, it is a strategic error. When you ask someone for their opinion, you are subconsciously putting them in an introspective, separating state of mind. You are asking them to step back, put on a judge's robe, and evaluate you from the outside. They become a critic.
They separate from you. So what is the alternative? How do you ask for feedback without turning them into a critic?
You ask for their advice.
Advice. It's such a tiny shift in vocabulary.
But the psychological impact is profound. The research shows that asking for advice creates a merging state of mind. It stimulates a linking of the customer's identity with the brand's identity. When you ask for advice, you're asking the customer to step into the creative process with you. They become a co-creator.
They are suddenly invested in the success of the product because they help build it. That is unity in action. The brand goes from being an external entity trying to sell them something to being an extension of their own advisory input.
That one-word shift from opinion to advice can significantly alter long-term consumer engagement and brand loyalty.
Okay, let's step back and look at where we are in the core motives model. We are taking our marketing students through the journey. We have successfully navigated step one.
Right.
Through small concessions, mirroring, and inviting them to co-create via advice, the customer feels a strong, positive affinity for our brand. The relationship is cultivated. But the customer is lingering on the checkout page. The item is in the cart, but they haven't clicked buy. Why?
Because affinity is not enough to overcome anxiety. The customer is facing risk. What if the product is garbage? What if they're being scammed? They lack validation.
Which brings us directly to step two of the model. Reducing uncertainty. We have to assure the consumer that the decision they are about to make is safe and wise. And the two primary levers we pulled to destroy that uncertainty are social proof and authority.
Let's unpack social proof. The underlying principle here is truths are us. It states that one crucial means we use to determine what is correct is to find out what other people think is correct. If we see a multitude of people performing a behavior, our brain automatically assumes it must be the right thing to do.
It's the ultimate herd mentality.
Yeah.
And there's a phenomenal historical case study in the text regarding Sylvan Goldman and the invention of the shopping cart.
Yes.
This story perfectly illustrates how terrifying uncertainty can be and how social proof completely eradicates it.
It's a remarkable piece of retail history. So in 1934, Sylvan Goldman owned a chain of grocery stores. He was analyzing customer behavior and noticed a distinct bottleneck in his revenue. Customers stopped buying the exact moment their handheld wicker shopping baskets became too heavy.
Right, the physical limitation of the basket dictated the financial limit of the transaction.
Exactly. So he applies his ingenuity. He takes a folding chair, puts wheels on the legs, and attaches 2 metal baskets to the seat in the back. He invents the world's first shopping cart. It solves the physical problem entirely. Customers can now buy 4 times as many groceries without straining their arms.
And Goldman rolls them out into his stores, completely expecting a revolution in his sales figures.
But nobody uses them. They just sit there. Customers walk right past these new contraptions and pick up the heavy, painful, handheld baskets.
From a rational standpoint, it's absurd. Why would they choose to suffer?
Because of uncertainty. The shopping cart was completely novel. It looked strange. Men felt it challenged their masculinity to push a cart rather than carry a heavy basket. Women felt it looked too much like pushing a baby carriage, which they were trying to take a break from while shopping.
Oh, wow.
The ambiguity of this new device created massive social friction. Goldman put signs up explaining how to use them. He put them right by the front door. Nothing worked. He was on the verge of abandoning the invention entirely.
But then he realizes he needs to reprogram the social environment. So what does he do?
He deploys manufactured social proof. Goldman hired people actors, essentially, to walk around his grocery stores, pushing the carts, loading them up with items, and casually browsing the aisles.
He faked a herd.
And the results were instantaneous. As soon as his actual legitimate customers walked in and saw other normal-looking people comfortably using the carts, their uncertainty evaporated. The social friction disappeared. They immediately grabbed carts themselves.
Unbelievable.
The invention swept the nation, changed global retail forever, and Goldman died with an estate worth over $400 million.
All because he showed his customers that the many were doing it. It's fascinating how quickly the brain shifts from, this is terrifying and new, to, oh, everyone else is doing it, I must be missing out.
If we break down the mechanics, social proof operates at maximum power under 3 specific conditions. First, uncertainty. When a situation is ambiguous or novel, we are most likely to look to the crowd for cues. Second, the many. The larger the number of people performing the behavior, the stronger the magnetic pull of conformity.
And the third condition is similarity. We don't just look to any crowd. We look to people who are like us. If I'm a teenager trying to decide what shoes to wear, I don't care what a group of elderly men are wearing. I care what my peers are doing.
Exactly. And social proof serves a dual function in the consumer's mind. First, it provides validity. If thousands of people are raving about a new restaurant, the odds are statistically high that the food is actually good. The crowd validates the quality. But second, and crucially for complex products, it provides feasibility.
Feasibility, meaning, can I actually pull this off?
Yes. If a company tells you that installing a home solar panel system will save you thousands of dollars, you might believe the math. That's validity. But you might still hesitate because you think the installation process will be a bureaucratic nightmare that you aren't equipped to handle. That's a lack of feasibility.
I see.
But if the company tells you that 70% of the homeowners in your specific zip code have successfully installed their panels, the barrier of uncertain achievability is destroyed. If your neighbors can do it, you can do it.
Which brings us directly to the modern digital battleground. Today, we don't have hired actors pushing physical carts. The most prominent and influential form of social proof on the planet is the online review section. 98% of online shoppers explicitly state that authentic customer reviews are the most important factor influencing their purchase decisions.
The review section is the digital herd.
But there's a massive problem. We all know the herd is often faked. Review sections are heavily infested with manufactured social proof. Brands pay click farms for thousands of 5-star reviews to inflate their own ranking, or they maliciously plant 1-star reviews to tank their competitors.
It's rampant.
So how do we, as consumers or ethical marketers, defend against this? Cialdini provides a fantastic e-box detailing how to spot fake online reviews with startling accuracy.
The linguistics of deception are truly fascinating. Researchers at Cornell University developed a computer algorithm to analyze the text of thousands of hotel reviews, comparing known genuine reviews against known fakes. They discovered 3 major subconscious tells that deceivers use.
Let's walk through them. What is the first tell?
First, fake reviews lack concrete spatial detail. Deceivers write heavily about setting a scene. They use words like vacation, business trip, or my husband. They focus on the idea of the trip. Genuine reviewers, on the other hand, focus on the physical reality. They use highly specific spatial words like bathroom, check-in desk, or price.
That makes total sense. If you are sitting in a cubicle in another country writing a fake review for a hotel in Miami, it is cognitively exhausting to try and invent these specific architectural details of a lobby you've never stood in. It's easier to just write, "My husband and I had a lovely vacation."
Precisely. The second tell involves pronouns. Fake reviews use significantly more first-person pronouns, I and me.
Why is that? You would think liars would try to distance themselves from the lie.
It's an overcompensation mechanism. When people are trying to sound sincere and mask a fabrication, they subconsciously talk about themselves more to bolster their own credibility. They're trying to anchor the fake experience to their own identity to make it seem real.
I thought this was great. It really helped me.
Exactly. And the third tell is perhaps the most revealing. Fake reviews use a significantly higher ratio of verbs to nouns.
Verbs over nouns. Why?
Genuine reviews are heavy on nouns because they are evaluating things. The mattress, the toaster, the battery life, the waiter. They are cataloging the physical components of the experience. But fake reviews rely on verbs because the writer is substituting a pleasant, action-oriented story for actual descriptive insight. They are telling a narrative instead of evaluating a product.
That is a brilliant heuristic for navigating Amazon or Yelp. Look for nouns and concrete details, ignore verbs and I statements.
So social proof looks to the horizontal crowd to reduce uncertainty. But there's a vertical lever we can pull as well. This is the principle of authority.
Directed deference. We have this deep-seated, deeply ingrained tendency to obey legitimate authorities. And logically, this makes sense. From childhood, we are taught that parents, teachers, and doctors possess higher levels of knowledge, wisdom, and power. Deferring to an expert is usually an incredibly efficient, rational heuristic.
It is rational until it becomes a fixed action pattern. Just like the mother turkey deferring to the cheep sound, humans can fall into a click-run trap, where we obey the symbols of authority rather than evaluating the actual substance of the expertise.
And the aviation industry has a terrifying documented name for this phenomenon, don't they? Captainitis.
Yes. Accident investigators have analyzed the black box recordings of numerous plane crashes and found a chilling pattern. In many cases, an obvious, fatal error was made by the flight captain. The co-pilot, who is highly trained in looking at the exact same instrumentation, sees the error.
But they don't say anything.
They say nothing, or they offer only a meek suggestion that is ignored. Even when facing immediate life-and-death consequences, the co-pilot's brain relies on the heuristic. If the expert is doing it, it must be correct. They defer to the title of captain and the plane crashes.
They outsource their critical thinking to the symbol of the four stripes on the shoulder. We fall for titles, we fall for expensive clothing, we fall for the trappings of status. My favorite example from the book is the Vicks Formula 44 cough syrup commercial from the 1980s.
Ah, a masterpiece of manipulating symbols.
It really is. Vicks hired an actor named Peter Bergman. At the time, Bergman was playing the role of Dr. Cliff Warner on a massively popular soap opera. So Vicks puts him in a commercial. He's wearing a white medical lab coat. He looks directly into the camera and says, "I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV." And then he proceeds to enthusiastically recommend Vicks Formula 44.
And what was the consumer response?
It was one of the most successful advertising campaigns of the decade. It worked brilliantly. People explicitly knew he was an actor. He literally stated he wasn't a doctor in the first 5 seconds. But the visual symbol of the white lab coat, combined with his association with a medical role on TV, was enough to trigger the compliance program. Click. Run. The brain saw the lab coat and deferred to the expert.
Now, as marketing students navigating this masterclass, you must understand a crucial distinction here. There is a massive difference between being an authority and being an authority.
Right. Being an authority means you have power over someone. You are the boss, the police officer, the dictator. You can force compliance through the threat of punishment.
But that breeds resentment, evasion, and resistance. It is not sustainable for a brand. What you want is to be seen as an authority. You want to be a credible expert. You possess deep knowledge. People want to follow your advice because they believe it will lead them to a better outcome.
But how do you prove that you are a credible expert? I mean, anyone can claim to be an expert online. How do you bypass the consumer's natural skepticism?
To be a truly persuasive authority, you must establish two elements simultaneously: expertise and trustworthiness. You can have all the expertise in the world, but if the audience thinks you are just trying to line your own pockets, they will reject your message. And there is a master-level counterintuitive tactic for establishing instant, almost unbreakable trustworthiness.
What is it?
You argue slightly against your own interests.
The honest drawback. This is my absolute favorite tactic in the entire book.
It is remarkably effective. Before you present the major compelling strengths of your product or argument, you proactively acknowledge a minor weakness or a drawback.
Like the legendary Avis rental car campaign from the 1960s. Their slogan was, "We're number 2, we try harder." They explicitly admitted they weren't the market leader. Or L'Oreal Cosmetics. "We're more expensive, but you're worth it." Or a few years ago when Domino's Pizza ran that massive multi-million-dollar campaign admitting that their old pizza crust tasted like cardboard.
Why does this work so profoundly? Because it completely disarms the brain's critical defense mechanisms. When a brand admits a fault up front, the consumer is startled. They think, wow, if this company is willing to publicly broadcast a negative truth about themselves, they must be highly objective, deeply honest, and incredibly trustworthy.
You prove your honesty by taking a small hit.
Exactly. And once that trustworthiness is firmly established in the consumer's mind, the brand immediately follows up with their primary positive claim that they try harder or that their new pizza recipe is spectacular. And because the brand has just proven their unassailable honesty, the audience is infinitely more likely to believe the positive claim. The honest drawback paves a frictionless road for the core marketing message.
Okay, let's recalibrate and look at our customer journey. The customer likes us. They feel a sense of tribal unity. They have seen the social proof of 1,000 positive reviews, and we have established our authority as a trustworthy expert by transparently admitting our product is a bit pricey but built to last a lifetime. All of their uncertainty has been systematically dismantled. The item is sitting in their cart. They believe in the product, but they still haven't clicked buy. Why?
Because belief is not action. They can always buy it tomorrow. They can wait for next payday. They lack the immediate driving motivation to cross the finish line right now.
Which brings us to the final critical step of the core motives model, motivating action. And the two most powerful levers for forcing immediate definitive action are commitment consistency and scarcity.
Let's unpack commitment and consistency. The psychological principle here is that once we make a choice or take a stand, we face immense, almost overwhelming personal and interpersonal pressures to behave consistently with that initial commitment. We construct our self-identity around our past actions.
Yeah, the drive to remain consistent can compel people to do incredibly dangerous things. Look at the New York City beach theft study. This perfectly isolates the power of a micro-commitment.
The setup is simple but brilliant. Researchers went to a crowded New York beach. An accomplice would lay out a beach blanket next to a randomly chosen stranger. The accomplice listens to a portable radio for a few minutes, then stands up and walks down the beach toward the water, leaving the radio on the blanket.
A few minutes later, a researcher pretending to be a thief sprints past, grabs the radio off the blanket, and tries to run away.
Under normal baseline conditions, only 4 out of 20 people intervene to stop the thief.
Which is completely understandable. Most people are not going to risk getting stabbed or punched by a frantic criminal just to save a stranger's cheap radio.
Yeah.
Rational self-preservation takes over.
But then, the researchers added one tiny, subtle step. Before the accomplice left their blanket to go to the water, they leaned over to the stranger next to them and asked a simple question. "Excuse me, would you please watch my things?"
A trivial social request. And of course, everyone agreed. They nodded and said, sure. They made a micro-commitment.
And then the fake thief came and grabbed the radio. What happened?
It's unbelievable. 19 out of 20 people became absolute vigilantes. They leapt to their feet. They chased the thief down the beach. They tackled him. They forcibly grabbed the radio back. 19 out of 20 risking physical harm. Why?
Because they had made a commitment. The psychological drive to be consistent with that verbal agreement completely overrode their natural, rational reluctance to put themselves in danger. To sit there and do nothing would create massive cognitive dissonance. It would violate their newly adopted identity as the watcher of the things. If you can get someone to make a commitment, to take a stand, to go on record, you set the stage for automatic, almost unstoppable consistency.
And for marketers, the tactical application of this is called the foot in the door technique. You don't ask for the massive sale right away. You start with a tiny, seemingly inconsequential request to gain compliance, with the ultimate goal of leveraging that consistency into a much larger request later.
Cialdini discusses a classic study conducted in California neighborhoods that demonstrates how deeply a small commitment alters our self-image. A researcher posing as a volunteer went door to door, asking homeowners to allow a massive, poorly lettered, incredibly ugly wooden billboard to be installed on their front lawn. The sign read, "Drive carefully."
Unsurprisingly, almost everyone refused. Who wants an ugly billboard destroying their landscaping? Only 17% of people agreed.
But in a similar neighborhood nearby, a different researcher went to the homes 2 weeks earlier. This researcher didn't ask for a billboard. They asked the homeowners to do something tiny. Just place a small 3-inch square sign in their front window that said, "Be a safe driver."
It was such a trivial request that almost everyone agreed. It required zero effort and didn't impact the look of their house.
But 2 weeks later, when the first researcher came back to those specific homes and asked them to put the massive, ugly wooden billboard on their lawn, an astounding 76% complied.
A leap from 17% to 76%. It's mind-blowing. By agreeing to put that tiny sticker in the window, the homeowners fundamentally changed their own self-image. Over those 2 weeks, they began to see themselves as public-spirited citizens who were deeply committed to neighborhood safety. When the massive request for the ugly billboard came, they had to say yes in order to stay consistent with their new identity.
Professional salespeople use this need for consistency relentlessly. At a National Auto Dealers Association convention, an expert speaker told a room full of car salespeople, "Put them on paper. Ask them if they would buy the car right now if the price is right. Pin them down."
Get the verbal commitment before you even start talking numbers.
Exactly. If the salesperson can maneuver the customer into publicly stating, "Yes, I will buy this car today if we can agree on the price," the customer's psychological need for consistency makes it incredibly difficult for them to walk out of the dealership later. Even if the negotiations get tough, they have already declared themselves a buyer.
So that is the slow burn of commitment. But what if you don't have 2 weeks? What if you need the customer to act right this very second? That brings us to the ultimate closer. Scarcity, the rule of the few.
Opportunities seem significantly more valuable to us when their availability is limited. And this principle is deeply anchored in a fundamental evolutionary concept called loss aversion.
Loss aversion is the psychological finding that human beings are vastly more motivated by the prospect of losing something than they are by the prospect of gaining something of equal value. Losing a $100 bill hurts far more than finding a $100 bill feels good.
From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes perfect sense. If you are a primitive human and you miss an opportunity to gain an extra day's worth of food, you are slightly hungry. But if you lose the food you already have, you die. Our brains are hardwired to prioritize threats of loss above all else. Under conditions of risk and uncertainty, the threat of potential loss dominates our decision-making.
Which is why public health campaigns framing things as a loss work so much better. Researchers found that pamphlets urging young women to perform breast cancer self-examinations are significantly more effective when they state their case in terms of what stands to be lost by not like losing your health or your life, rather than what stands to be gained by doing it. We are terrified of losing out.
And marketers weaponize this fear of missing out relentlessly. Limited time offer. Only 3 items left in stock. Sale ends at midnight. They are deliberately trying to induce a panicky, feverish emotional arousal that short-circuits rational, deliberative thought. To see how deeply scarcity alters our physical perception of value, we can look at psychologist Stephen Wurtzel's famous chocolate chip cookie study.
Yes. Wurtzel brought participants into a room and gave them a chocolate chip cookie from a glass jar. He asked them to taste the cookie and rate its quality. For half the participants, the jar had 10 cookies in it, an abundant supply. For the other half, the jar only had 2 cookies in it, a scarce supply.
The cookies were physically identical, baked in the same batch.
But the results were drastically different. The people who ate the cookie from the jar of 2 rated it as far more desirable, more attractive, and estimated it should cost significantly more at the store than the people who ate the identical cookie from the jar of 10. The mere fact of its scarcity physically altered their sensory perception of its value.
But Wurtzel wasn't finished. He wanted to find out what happens when you supercharge scarcity. He set up a third condition. What if the jar started with 10 cookies, but right before the participant could reach in to take one, the researcher abruptly took 8 away and gave them to another participant in the next room who needed them more?
Oh, So it wasn't just scarce from the beginning. It became scarce right in front of their eyes, and it became scarce because of social demand, because of rivalry.
Exactly. And the cookies from that specific jar were rated the highest of all. This reveals a profound truth about human desire. We don't just want a scarce item more. We want it most when we are in direct competition for it. The feeling of being in a rivalry for a limited resource has powerful, almost physical motivating properties. It bypasses the intellect entirely and creates a primal feeding frenzy.
You see this in real estate all the time. Cialdini describes how an agent will deal with a fence-sitting buyer who can't pull the trigger. The agent will call the hesitant buyer and say, hey, another couple just looked at the house and they absolutely love it. They are coming back tomorrow morning to discuss terms. What do you want to do?
It's an industry tactic called goosing him off the fence.
And suddenly, the hesitant buyer becomes zealous. They don't even care about the leaky roof anymore. The thought of losing the house to a rival triggers an intense, irrational desire to possess it immediately. They make an offer above asking price.
Which brings us to Reader Report 9.1, which is incredibly ironic because it features Dr. Cialdini himself. The master of influence falls victim to his own subject matter.
He was wandering around an electronics store, looking at a big screen TV that was on sale. He wasn't really planning to buy it that day. He was just browsing, evaluating his options. A salesman named Brad notices his interest and walks over. Brad says, I see you're looking at this set. It's a fantastic deal. But I have to be honest with you, it's our last one in the store. And I just got a call from a woman who said she might come in this afternoon to buy it.
So, analyze what Brad is doing here. He is hitting Cialdini with the ultimate psychological combo. He establishes limited number, it's the last one, and he immediately introduces competition. Another buyer is coming for it.
And Cialdini, a man who has literally spent his entire professional life studying, categorizing, and writing books about these exact tactics, feels the physiological surge of arousal. His brain screams loss. He stops evaluating the TV and buys it on the spot.
The biological program overrides the intellectual knowledge. Click, run.
But the story has a phenomenal ending. Robert returns to the electronics store the very next day. Why? Because he wants to know if Brad was lying. He wants to see if there's another identical TV sitting on that shelf. Because if there is, Brad fabricated the scarcity just to trigger the click-run response. Brad used deception to make a sale.
But when Cialdini checks the aisle, there isn't another TV. The shelf is completely empty. Brad had told the absolute truth. And this moment brings us to the final and ethically most significant section of our masterclass, the boundary line between honest persuasion and digital deception.
Before we firmly define that ethical boundary, we have to look at one more psychological mechanism. It operates entirely in the background, but it acts as an amplifier for almost every principle we've discussed. It's called the contrast principle. It governs how we see the difference between two things presented one after another. If the second item is fairly different from the first, we tend to see it as being more different than it actually is.
The classic psych lab demonstration of this involves 3 buckets of water. One bucket is filled with cold water, one with room temperature water, and one with hot water. A student is instructed to place their left hand in the cold water and their right hand in the hot water and leave them there for a minute.
Letting the hands acclimate to the extremes.
Yes. Then the researcher tells the student to remove both hands and immediately plunge them both into the room temperature bucket simultaneously. The result is total sensory confusion. The left hand, which was in the cold water, feels like it is plunged into hot water. The right hand, which was in the hot water, feels like it is plunged into cold water.
It's the exact same bucket of water, but the preceding physical event completely altered the perception of reality.
And this principle applies to cognitive reality just as effectively as physical reality.
Which brings us to the greatest letter ever written by a college student. Cialdini includes this letter a student named Sharon wrote to her parents. We have to read the whole thing to appreciate the genius of it. It goes, Dear Mother and Dad, I am sorry for my thoughtlessness and not having written before. I will bring you up to date now, but please sit down before you read any further.
Great opening.
Oh, it gets better. I'm getting along pretty well now. The skull fracture and the concussion I got when I jumped out the window of my dormitory when it caught on fire shortly after my arrival is pretty well healed.
Wow.
I only spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and now I can see almost normally and only get those sick headaches once a day. Fortunately, the fire in the dorm and my jump was witnessed by an attendant at the gas station near the dorm, and he was the one who called the fire department and the ambulance.
Setting the scene nicely.
He also visited me in the hospital, and since I had nowhere to live because of the burnt-out dormitory, he was kind enough to invite me to share his apartment with him. It's really a basement room, but it's kind of cute. He's a very fine boy, and we have fallen deeply in love and are planning to get married.
Uh-oh.
We haven't got the exact date yet, but it will be before my pregnancy begins to show. The reason for the delay is that my boyfriend has a minor infection which prevents us from passing our premarital blood tests, and I carelessly caught it from him.
A masterpiece of disaster.
Wait for the pivot. Now that I've brought you up to date, I want to tell you that there was no dormitory fire, I did not have a concussion or skull fracture, I was not in the hospital, I am not pregnant, I am not engaged, I do not have syphilis, and there is no boyfriend. However, I am getting a D in American history and an F in chemistry, and I want you to see those marks in their proper perspective. Your loving daughter, Sharon.
Sharon may be failing chemistry, but she deserves a master's degree in psychology. By presenting a horrifying, catastrophic scenario first, she establishes an extreme anchor. The reality of poor grades, which might normally cause a parental explosion, suddenly seems incredibly trivial and relieving by contrast.
It is brilliant manipulation. And this principle is heavily weaponized in traditional brick-and-mortar sales.
Absolutely. Real estate agents are notorious for using setup properties. They will intentionally keep a couple of rundown, grossly overpriced houses on their active list. When they take a new client out for the first time, they don't show them the good houses, they show them the dumps first.
Let them walk through the terrible, overpriced houses and feel despair.
Yes, because after walking through a dilapidated shack asking for top dollar, the genuine property the agent actually wants to sell, a normal house at a normal price, suddenly looks like a magnificent palace and an absolute steal by contrast.
Retail clothing stores use it constantly, too. They explicitly train their sales staff to sell the most expensive item first. If a man walks into a menswear store to buy a suit and a sweater, common sense might suggest you sell him the sweater first. Because if he drops $500 on a suit right out of the gate, he might feel tapped out and be reluctant to spend any more money.
But the contrast principle dictates the exact opposite strategy. You must sell the $500 suit first. Because after dropping $500, a $90 sweater doesn't seem expensive at all. It feels like a minor add-on. If you show the $90 sweater first, the $500 suit will look even more outrageously priced when you get to it. You have to anchor high.
But you have to be incredibly careful with contrast, because if you anchor incorrectly, you can destroy your own negotiation. We see this in Reader Report 1.2. An airline desk agent at O'Hare Airport had a severely overbooked flight. He needed passengers to volunteer to take a later plane. He gets on the intercom and decides to be funny. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are offering a voucher worth $10,000. Is anyone willing to give up their seat and take a later flight?"
A joke designed to break the tension. Everyone laughs.
But then he reveals the actual, real offer. A $200 voucher, and the terminal goes dead silent. Not a single person takes it. He eventually had to keep raising the real offer up to $500 to get anyone to even consider budging.
He used the contrast principle against himself. By anchoring their expectations with the joke of $10,000, the actual $200 offer looked like absolute pennies by comparison. He made his own legitimate offer look insulting.
So we have tracked the entire journey. We've seen how remarkably powerful all these levers are when combined. Reciprocation, liking, unity, social proof, authority, scarcity, all amplified by contrast. This brings us back to Brad, the Best Buy salesman who sold Cialdini the TV. Was Brad acting ethically?
This is the fundamental crux of the text. To determine the ethics, we have to contrast the goal of the marketer with the survival need of the consumer. As we established in the beginning, consumers live in a hyper-complex world. We must rely on shortcuts to survive. We don't have time to research every TV component. We need reliable cues. We need to know if an item is truly popular, if a genuine expert truly recommends it, if the supply is actually scarce.
We need accurate information so our click-run responses lead us to good decisions.
Yes. So, if a marketer provides honest information, if a product really is the best selling in its category, or if there genuinely is only one TV left on the shelf, they are acting as a cooperating partner in the consumer's decision-making process. They are pulling the levers of influence, yes, but they are doing so by illuminating reality. They are informants. Brad was an informant. He told the truth.
But what if Brad had lied? What if there were 10 identical TVs sitting in the back room, and he completely fabricated the story about the other woman coming to buy it, just to trigger Cialdini's scarcity panic?
Then Brad crosses the line from informant to profiteer. He becomes a biological mimic. He is acting exactly like the futurist Firefly.
This is such a dark, brilliant analogy. We have to explain the fireflies. So in nature, the male Photianus firefly has this special, specific blinking light code. He flashes it to signal to females of his species that he is ready to mate.
A biological trigger feature.
But the females of a completely different predatory genus, the Photius firefly, have evolved a deadly trick. They have learned to flawlessly mimic the exact blinking pattern of the Photinus female. So the male Photinus sees the blinking in the dark, his mating program is triggered, click, run, and he flies happily right into the arms of the Photius female.
Who immediately eats him. She exploits his automatic necessary survival program for her own predatory benefit.
Manipulative marketers are the Photius fireflies of the commercial world. They counterfeit the trigger features. When a brand buys 1,000 fake reviews from a click farm, they are counterfeiting social proof. When a website puts a fake resetting 15-minute countdown timer on their checkout page, they are counterfeiting scarcity. They are mimicking the signals we rely on just to devour our wallets.
And we must recognize that these profiteers aren't just tricking us out of a few dollars. They are doing something vastly more destructive to society at large.
How so?
They are destroying the structural integrity of our cognitive safety nets. We need these shortcuts to function. If we can no longer trust that a long line outside a restaurant means the food is actually good, or that a 5-star rating represents real human experiences, or that a limited time offer is actually ending, our ability to efficiently navigate the world collapses. We will be forced back into decision paralysis.
They are polluting our decision-making environment. Therefore, Cialdini argues that our response to these deceptive practices shouldn't just be passive annoyance. We shouldn't just roll our eyes and move on. We must aggressively, actively retaliate.
It is a survival imperative. If you realize a brand is using fake countdown timers, you shouldn't just close the tab. You should actively boycott them, post reviews exposing their deception, and warn your network. If you encounter a brand counterfeiting authority or faking reviews, you must punish the exploiters. By refusing to tolerate the mimics, we protect the reliability of the shortcuts we all need to survive.
Wow, okay, let's synthesize this entire masterclass. We have taken our marketing students on the full, comprehensive customer journey. We started by dismantling the illusion of rational choice, understanding that the human brain operates on automatic click-run scripts, relying on heuristics like expensive equals good to navigate an overwhelmingly complex world.
From there, we explored the 3 distinct stages of persuasion. First, cultivating a relationship by utilizing reciprocation through concessions, establishing affinity, and pulling the incredibly powerful new lever of unity, shifting consumers from being outside critics to unitized co-creators by asking for advice.
Second, we reduced uncertainty by providing honest social proof and demonstrating genuine authority, perhaps even deploying the honest drawback to establish unwavering, immediate trustworthiness.
And third, we motivated immediate action by securing public, active commitments that literally alter the consumer's self-image, and by honestly communicating the scarcity of an opportunity, tapping into our primal evolutionary aversion to loss.
And wrapping it all in a strict, unyielding framework. Be an informant, not a profiteer. Illuminate the genuine truth. Do not be the cannibal firefly counterfeiting the signals.
Because while the platforms will inevitably change from brick-and-mortar showrooms to complex digital storefronts to AI-driven interfaces, the underlying psychological architecture of the human brain remains exactly the same.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about digital cues, but as algorithms become exponentially more sophisticated, their ability to perfectly mimic genuine human connection is accelerating. The line between true tribal unity and artificial liking engineered by a machine is going to blur tremendously. Your challenge as a consumer moving forward isn't just to spot the fake reviews or the phony countdown timers. Your challenge is to actively, consciously decide which brands and which platforms truly deserve to be part of your we group. Because in a digital ecosystem specifically engineered to make you click and run, your greatest rebellion is choosing where to pause.
It is the ultimate defense against the invisible code.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The next time you find yourself lingering on a checkout page, feeling that sudden urge to click Add to Cart, take a breath, look at your own behavior, and ask yourself, who is really pulling the levers?